think that it provides that roadmap, like I said before, of, these are the different components that really are important to help guide an initiative or guide a network. But also to understand that you can do them in a wide variety of different ways. And there's many tools that you can use, but really to help provide that roadmap was key.
As you know, one of our goals at the offset was to work on our governance structure and move to a more distributed leadership model. And so we can achieve better participation from our member organizations. And I think the value sequencing exercise that we went through at the conference was very illuminating because it helped us see through that we were doing a lot, but we need to do a better job of explaining the value and efforts to our organizational members, to our leaders, and also have a methodology to be able to document that work.
So if I could choose just one, then it would be sort of this innovation around sustainable funding and structuring the different type of investments to secure initiatives in partnership-led community development.
But also, I think the enthusiasm from the different groups and also like the little touches on each of the topic areas was really great to, I think, open our eyes to things that we hadn't thought of as a coalition before. So I think that was super crucial, and we took a lot of aha and momentum from that.
When you are working at the ground level, you define people as, okay, well, they're leaders because this is the executive director of this agency, or they're funders, right? But being an integrator or being the one that actually pulls some of those people together, there's not a lot of thought giving to that. I think at the ground level, people don't think about that as being something that's as useful as it is, like that we think about immediately. So I think thinking outside of our box of, well, we need to have the funders and the executive directors and the so-called leaders at the table, but expanding what that means, that integrators also have a huge role because it keeps the momentum going and actually can mean that we actually get to where we want to be, what our goals are together in partnership.
I feel like we've stepped in more confidently and owned our vision of working together and sharing the work and doing it with this strong equity lens.
We were always good at bringing people together or working well with others. We play well in the sandbox with others. But I think we were able to define ourselves more closely as an integrator. Like sometimes when you also give a name to something, you label it, right? And then you can kind of own it too and say, these things we do well, right? And so I think that over time, as we became more comfortable with what the functions were, and again, being more intentional, being more mindful, and going back to our activities and what the different functions were, I think we were able to define ourselves more as integrators.
With that, I think the ability to kind of go and have dedicated time and be in a location where we are away and that was our priority. There's such benefit to that. There's such benefit to gathering and having that dedicated space. But I think exactly it's the technical assistance that's really allowed us to kind of move forward or allowed us to kind of take those next steps and figure out how to roll out this work. Because I think if we don't have that, what happens is you go to a really great training, it's really great and exciting, and then the world, you move into a global pandemic and it's like, oh shoot, I forgot all of those things that I learned how to do. So I think there's, that was a really great value just to have that, and then existing meetings that we could try to get some help problem solving and also just keep it very tangible and keep it really small. I think that was the one thing our group did a really good job of, is we had really big ideas, but we were able to keep it small and really tangible of like, that's not realistic. And so I think those skills definitely are things that I brought with me of, we don't have to solve everything. We could just solve these 2 or 3 things.
I think we got further during the Integrator Learning Lab timeline than we would have on our own. It really gave us the space and the freedom to focus on our governance and management structures. Because we were established, many years ago, there was a little bit of hesitancy to go back and look at some of those foundational documents and some of the structures that we've been relying on for so many years. But the lab really gave us that space to pause and review those fundamental aspects of our relationships with each other.
You gotta think about what we're doing, and we have to take our next steps. And so there's that kind of, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing, right? It's that external motivation to keep going. I call that behavioral momentum in my world. It's like behavioral momentum, and and then you get kind of reinforced for it too, because you're successful. We have a call and we're like, oh, we did this thing, and we had some small movement. Even if it was small, we were successful, and then you feel good. So then you're reinforced, and you're going to go to the next step, and you're going to keep going. So I think both those, yes, the TA sessions, but if we didn't have feedback and consistent, like, let's keep going, then I don't think it goes anywhere. And this is the problem we have in general with training, is if you can have an in-service and a didactic training, but it's not going to go anywhere unless you have feedback and you're checking in with people. So I think that, to me, is huge, and is the reason we've gone as far as we have.
But one key thing I think that was really helpful is having that peer accountability, coming together, although virtually, and sharing our experiences, sharing our work, and making sure that we were keeping up with each other, that we were understanding what were some of the challenges and barriers in this virtual world to still be connected to our community. And that a level of accountability, I don't think we would have had otherwise without Nemours.
And I think just this huge sense of feeling accountable for continuing the work even when things got tough, because it is such a small group that had this amazing opportunity offered to them, and we were one of them. And so we took that pretty serious, and we felt like this kind of external pressure to do well, as Sharon said. And it would have been, especially given the circumstances with the pandemic, it would have been very easy to say, you know what, we'll just put it on hold, we're done, we'll wait until things get better. And we didn't, because we wanted to be able to report back to you, and we didn't want to waste this opportunity. So I think that is definitely important.
I would say the top would have been the TA sessions for me. It was very important to be able to have consultants just guiding, reviewing. It's very costly to have really good consultants, and the fact that I was able to have access to this for free through the Integrator Learning Lab to really build our network into what it should be is, it's just incredible.
And so having someone else whose job it is to know that, I don't know that I would have felt like we could have gotten quite as far without having that translation piece for us. And then also having people who were just dedicated to like knowing our project, like who knew what we were doing and knew what we were trying to accomplish and who we were and what our context was so huge. This stuff isn't applicable to us because we aren't urban and we can't do that, and we can't get those ends if we were going to do a study or do a survey. So having people who spent the whole time with us and got to know that was super helpful, as opposed to it being someone who just like kind of knew but didn't have the ability to directly apply stuff to us.
Both those sessions, for different reasons, were amazing because it made us rethink our approaches, for sure. And so that's always good to say, have an outsider look at your work and say, here's what we see, people who are successful in what they do and have had, some movement.
The Integrator Learning Lab staff helped us to develop that retreat framework, engagement activities, and questions to ensure that we appropriately leveraged that strategic planning time together. It helped us reconfigure our approach to community engagement based on the expert advice that we got during the Integrator Learning Lab. And it helped us take some of those frameworks and build out conversations in a way that I don't believe we would have been able to do on our own.